Just look at this thing. Just drink it in. Those meters and meters of gorgeous wedgy Frenchness. This thing is huge, French, rare as hen's teeth. Wazo teeth? I don't know, what's French for chicken? This is a 1996 Citroen XM VSM, which puts it one level below the absolute top of the range. And this 26,000 original mile example is like new. Apart from the remote central locking doesn't work, apart from that it's like new. Not so long ago, it seemed like these things were absolutely everywhere. But I honestly don't remember the last time I saw one on the road. And according to the How Many Left website, there are 50 left in the UK. None of them are taxed for the road. This one I'm driving on dealer plates today. And this is likely to be the only one taxed when it sells in well, hopefully a few days. Let's take a look around it. The styling of this thing is, I'm going to say unique, but I'm sure there's something else similar, but nothing springs to mind. This is just one big, sharp, angular wedge getting bigger from that fine point at the front, bigger and bigger and bigger, because this is an estate car from when estate cars meant estate cars. You could put everything in there. And these days, to get this kind of load carrying capacity, you're going to have to go like 3 sizes up of SUV. And this is one of the reasons I hate SUVs, and I'll do an entire video about this one day, because I utterly loathe SUVs, because to get the same kind of space as you get in something like this, you need a car that's 3 feet wider and 6 feet longer. This, okay, it's big. This is a 5-seater, but a 5-seater and their dog and their luggage. Everything goes in here. There is a slight curve to the glass and a slight curve to the panel, but from a distance it just looks like angles and straight lines. There's an indent here, very Roy Axe in his 1970s and 80s BL days design influence, if you want to believe that. I'm not sure it's true, I just made it up. And having walked all the way to the back, which took a little while, it just steps down and up and down. It's angles everywhere. And the more you look, the more little lines and details you find. This line from the bottom of the mirror just curves around here through the wing and carries on to the back of the bonnet. That's a lovely little detail. This scalloped groove down the side of the flank tapers down to a point where it finally meets the indicator and becomes the top of the headlights. This is beautifully thought out. This is so Gallic. I love it. Here at the front, it all resolves nicely around the Citroen chevrons and these flat-fronted headlights. This is the 90s meets France at its very finest. It's a shame there aren't more of these left, and it's a shame I've never owned one. A big thank you to Stone Cold Classics in Rootham in Kent, where this car is for sale right now. Website link is in the description below. Please take a look at them and their other fantastic retro stock. You'll love all of it, I promise. I've walked around the back of the car, not because I'm too lazy to turn it around, but because I'm in the shade around here. Phew. June has arrived with a vengeance. Now, this thing is ridiculously practical. You have these big solid roof bars so you can attach your family's luggage for holidays, your big roof box, or bikes, kayaks, you name it, cement mixers, I don't know, whatever you want to carry on the roof of this big load space. And this is huge. This is like the size of, you know, a big, whatever it is that builders measure the floor of transits in, it's that big. You could happily put a big sort of French panel or something on there. Where the hatch and saloon will be tapering down into a small neat point at the back here, this just keeps on growing. So your boot space here at the back, just take in the size of this tailgate. It is massive. Oh, it weighs a ton and goes down deep into the bumper, so you've got a huge load space floor. But get this, look how thick this trunk lid is. It doesn't feel that wallowy on the road, but wow, that is squishy. I was about to say, as a 90s car, you do have modern things like retractable load space covers, and that lifts out as well, and big speakers in the back. I was going to show you the size of this cavernous boot, but what is really exciting, if you're a proper nerd like me, is in here where you have the original first aid kit from Citroen. This is an original Citroen first aid kit. I'm going to see what accessory, and because this car got used in France by the last owner quite a lot, it's got all the spare light bulbs and things in there as well. Now, like the Saabs I've been driving recently, this is unmistakably a French car. No one really does design like the French. They have their own unique take on things, where you put dials, where you position buttons, where you conceal things. For example, when you turn the ignition on, this black plastic strip here turns out to be a panel of warning lights that you couldn't see previously. And additionally, there's a little screen here which opens up with a very, very of its time green LED strip which emerges and then starts telling you information. For example, front left door open. I know if it was shut, the camera wouldn't see me, obviously. Here on the right hand side of that, we've got the clock and the temperature, which I actually didn't notice when I was driving. 24 degrees C. Something I had noticed is this car doesn't have air conditioning, and I really wish it did, because I don't cope well with the heat. I need to go and live in the Arctic, frankly. 24 is too hot for me. But looking past that little panel of switches and lights just here, we've got 3 matching size dials. From left to right, we've got the tacho, the speedo, and then a cluster of 3 in one dial, with the fuel gauge, the engine temperature, oil temperature. Hang on, that might be oil pressure actually. I don't know what that does. It does something. It's something to do with the oil, and it's got a minimum, maximum, and an orange and red LED glowy thing, which, who knows. We've got a nice big dash top glove box here containing the car's fresh MOT. I will say this car passed its MOT just a few days ago actually, so we know that's all good. Driver's airbag, but no passenger airbag, hence you've got that nice big glove box. And here, very similar to other cars of its era, Renaults especially, you've got a big bank of large buttons just prominent along the center of the console above the 3 simple dials for fan speed, wind direction and temperature. And below that, of course, we have our radio cassette, Citroen branded. It's the original radio cassette, and above and below the radio you have these 2 rather nice wood trimmed areas, which that could just be a plain blank bit of dashboard, but no, hit the button here and here and you have got your beautifully concealed cubby hole for your travel sweets and sunglasses, or if it was a higher spec car, perhaps a optionally specified CD player or graphic equalizer. And down here we have the ashtray and cigar lighter, which looks like it's actually never been used. And carrying on down into the transmission tunnel, we have the automatic gearbox, and manual was also available obviously. And next to that we have a little sprung loaded slidey switch which goes from normal to sport, so you can choose what mode you're in. And fascinatingly, and this is quite an unusual vehicle, you have a ride height adjustment for the suspension. Hydro-pneumatic suspension, I'll try and get that right. Hydro-pneumatic suspension, which you can then choose to go low down and get underneath low bridges maybe, or just look really cool and stance, and up high for off-roading or having trips with crates of eggs in the boot, or just putting lots of heavy stuff in the back, I don't know. As you carry even further on, we've got another little nice cubby hole. We've got electric window switches for the rear, electric window cut-off for the rear, and electric mirrors, and a nice carpet-lined storage box. In the driver's door, of course, you have your front window switches, a large single button for the passenger window, a smaller one. This is something I've never seen before. The driver's window has a little button for up and down manually, and a white button above and below. One touch opening on its own separate button. Fascinating. Now bear in mind, this car was second from the top in terms of specification. There was an Elegance, I think was the highest level, which had air conditioning, leather and a few other bits and pieces. This has still got a sunroof, not just any old sunroof, an electric sunroof no less. We've got steering wheel controls for the radio and electric seats down here on these big buttons on either side at the front. Very easy to find, no fumbling down the corners. We move our seat back as far forward as we want, going full airplanes, trains and automobiles if you really want to. And of course, forwards and backwards. Let's look at the engine. Although France did do some nice big V6s, most of their output was diesel, so let's have a quick look at that engine and then take it for a drive. Another, my goodness how French thing, after fumbling under the dashboard for a couple of minutes, I've discovered the bonnet release is down here, beside the passenger seat. Well, here it is, 4-cylinder, 2.1 litre, 109 horsepower, and 184 foot-pound of torque diesel. It's an old school diesel, so you have to wait for the little orange light to go out before you turn the key all the way. Then it rumbles into life. And one thing I should mention is that this car has a curious Mercedes-like handbrake. Unlike a Mercedes, you have to push the release button down first, then hit the crank, and then it's handbrake on. When you release it, it springs up again. So, strange little two-step thing. The LCD display below the temperature gauge tells you what gear it's a gear indicator. So I'm in drive now, for drive. Let's drive off and see what this car is like. The open road beckons. Now, being hydro pneumatic, the spheres contain high pressure oil for the suspension, but that also runs the brakes and the power steering. So if you have a problem with that system, then everything becomes a bit awkward. However, this has just come back from having its spheres rebuilt, I believe. Information is on Stone Cold Classics website. They've just done some work on that, so it is like new. And there is nothing on earth that rides quite like a hydro-sprung French car. Think DS's, think BX's. It goes way back to all those wonderful, wonderful vehicles from days gone by. It gives you that kind of firmness of a sports car and the luxury, drifty float of a big Rolls Royce. It just really is unique and rather wonderful. And there are lots of garages won't touch it because I think it's too complicated, but really it isn't. It's just basic, plumbing, really. Now, with that little 4-cylinder diesel up front and an automatic, performance, well, let's be kind and call it leisurely. 0 to 60 on this thing is 14 seconds. Up this rather steep hill, I'm going to guess it's a little more. But this car isn't about speed or 0 to 60 times. This car is about cruising. The last owner of this car kept it at a house in the south of France and used it for travelling distance. Even though the claimed MPG is about 48 to the gallon, he was recording a regular 55 MPG on sort of cruises across the continent. And that's what this car is good at. It's good at being extremely comfortable and economical and carrying big stuff. And that was its thing when it was new. This is a car to relax in. When I found I was going to be driving a French car today, I could have pandered to stereotypes and silliness and worn a stripy top and onions and a beret and that kind of nonsense. I'd like to think I'm bigger than that. I didn't realise I was going to be driving a French car. I thought I was going to drive a Lancia. I just didn't have time to plan. I'm not bigger than that. Sorry. The front seats and the back, to be honest, as well. Let's say the seats. The seats are just big, comfy, squishy velour armchairs. You just push yourself back into them and they just... It's like that. What are those relaxing gel ball things made of? I don't know what you call those. The squeezy things that you squeeze to make yourself feel more calm. This entire seat is a relaxing squeezy ball. In fact, this entire car is a relaxing squeezy ball. Oh yeah. As you drive, you can feel your troubles kind of melting away. Oh, this is nice. It's like a big massage on wheels. My back was kind of achy before I sat down in here. Now I feel good. These things were massively popular in France, and understandably so. And for one thing, they always support their own motor industry by buying their local product. But on the other hand, though, these things are just brilliant. This is so comfy and nice. I could just drive this all day. Comfort for the backseat passengers is nice as well. You've got another ashtray / litter bin in the back there. Again, never used. There are 4 blanked off switches just below that. There are little air vents in the B posts, blowing nice cool air at the rear seat passengers as well. And their headroom is just galactic. Just goes on and on forever. Now, normally I can sort of add some little personal colour to these reviews by talking about some friend or family member who may have had one in the past. I could honestly say I don't think I've ever met anyone who's owned one of these, apart from one guy who works at a classic car magazine, but he's only had them fairly recently, as he's my age or younger, and can't really put that into kind of historical context. But I think he's got about 7 or 8 of them probably. I keep wanting to change down a gear because hitting this very sharp corner, but it's automatic, so I just have to let it change down of its own accord. Whoa, tight bend, but the steering is beautifully light with the hydraulic assistance. I'm going to put this into sport and see if that makes any difference. Oh, a little spring shape. I wonder if this actually does the suspension rather than the gearbox, because that's a picture of a shock absorber on the dashboard just lit up. It does. That's just stiffened the suspension up. That slider is not, as I thought, sport setting for the gearbox, it's sport setting for the ride. Well, I did hang on to the gear as well, so maybe it is for the gear shift also. I don't know. These brakes, I think if you've driven an old Citroen, you will know what I'm talking about. They are famously abrupt. It's almost like I think it was the DS that just had the button you tap with your toe. This has a proper pedal on it, but hang on, there's nothing behind me. I'm going to hit the brakes now. Yeah, that really does stop very well indeed. I'm assuming there's ABS on this car because that didn't lock up and it felt like it was braking and releasing. I'd imagine a car of this spec from this year would have ABS. I'm going to put this back into normal mode, which is wafty and comfy, because these roads aren't really wide enough for rapid acceleration and silliness. Maybe on a bigger road that would be more suitable. The closest thing I can equate it to from its period would be a Renault 25. Diesels of this era aren't famous for being particularly smooth, but this isn't really at all bad. It's audible, certainly, but it's not distractingly so. Oh gosh, automatic and diesel. Marriage made in hell. Now, if you're a fan of quirky design features, not Quirk 10 features, I'm not Doug DeMuro, but if you watch this channel, you know that I do love a quirky design feature, then the glasshouse area of this car will be fascinating to you, because the black area around the windows and its windows frames are all quite an interesting little bit of work there. It took me a while to notice there's actually a quarter light, or a quarter glass depending what country you're in. Here, it's not opening obviously, but there are big vents to blow it and keep it clear, because the driver's window only opens this much. I guess because of the shape of the door, I can only assume so. The black frames around the rear windows are actually really quite thick and step up around with the shape of the back of the car. And they do warrant closer inspection if you are interested in that kind of design stuff. I hope you've enjoyed this little lump of French cheese, this wedge of Gallic delight, as much as I have, because I've had a great time driving this thing, and I'm going to be sorry to give it back. But unfortunately I have to. So if you've enjoyed this, please hit like, and please hit subscribe if you haven't already. I know I say it every time, but apparently it's the law. I didn't do a what's up either. Oh God, I'm going to be fired from YouTube. They won't have me back, I'm sure. There's a little circly thing with a steering wheel picture in the bottom corner. That is the bell notification. Hit that and you'll find out next time I'm going to launch anything video related into the world. I'm going to go this way and turn around. Please hit that, and then you'll find more exciting automotive goodness coming your way shortly.